practical purposes, unless the Tigers were to lose 2 in a row, they will be the champions in the regular season of the American. Just a lot of fun. When I think about the Tigers in UAB, and you got to realize, first time they ever played was '84. That school wasn't founded until '69. It didn't really play basketball until '74, and yet they've won a lot of games. They've won titles. Andy Kennedy, who was a player there, was the winningest coach, or is the winningest coach in a 5-year period than anybody else. Gene Bartow, Murray Bartow, Mike Davis, who, by the way, is number 2 on that list of all-time wins in a 5-year period, or most wins in a 5-year period. And it was a little weird for Mike coming back there yesterday. I know he felt really good about beating his old team. But I think of Steve Mitchell, who's still on the broadcast team, the former Mitchell High School player, who was friends and teammates with Andre Turner, of course, the Tigers coach now. I think of that relationship with Bartow and Finch, because before Finch came to really recruit for Dana Kirk, before that, he was the right-hand man of his coach, Gene Bartow. Don't forget, Bartow had been lured away from UCLA. It wasn't that hard. I don't think he loved it in California and L.A., especially when you had John Wooden right down the hall from your office. And so he started that program, and it's really been good. And it has become the rivalry. So many great Memphians have been on the UAB side of it all. And then you had on the Memphis side, Penny Hardaway, also coaching his alma mater. Penny Hardaway, who played in Bartow Arena when there were wars with the Blazers in the old great Midwest. And you think about all those things, and you think about the greatest rivalries that Memphis has had. I think the most games played is Louisville. That is truly, from my coming to this market, to Memphis in 1981. That's all anybody wanted to talk about. Memphis and Louisville, going back to the Missouri Valley Conference days when Finch was a player. And those days when I first came, you had Denny Crum in his glory. You had the McRaes. You had Purvis Ellison. You had so many great players that was vying against one another. That was definitely the great rivalry. Then when Louisville left, it became Cincinnati. Even though Southern Miss was around, and I think Southern Miss has played the second most games in the rivalry, Cincinnati was a great team. Those were top 25 battles on a regular basis. That became your rival. They went away. You still had Houston, and Houston and Memphis in the short term here became your rivalry. Well, and we're going to talk about exactly what Kelvin Sampson and his team have been able to do. They won 4 straight conference championships in the regular season, 2 in the American and now 2 in the Big 12. Didn't hurt them to go to a power, did it? But that was Memphis's rival. In the background has always been UAB a little bit because of those days I've already mentioned. But now they're it. And you could tell in Bartow Arena, the mayor had put on an APB and said, everybody, you got to be there at 3 o'clock to back this team. And I don't know if it was a total sellout, but it sure was close. The rumor before the game was they were selling standing room tickets only.
Oh, wow.
And there are some arenas that Memphis has traveled to, New Orleans, for instance, where the Tigers actually had more people than the home team. That certainly was not the case yesterday. This was a hostile environment, and the Tigers absolutely lived up to the billing. They got punched in the mouth in the first half. This was the team they had beaten by 23 at home. They had shut down Yaxel Lendeborg. Folks came out. They had the edge emotionally. They really had something to prove. Remember, they were picked ahead of Memphis in the preseason poll in the American, and they wanted to prove a point, and they came out and they punched the Tigers first. But in the end, Andy Kennedy himself said it. The Tigers out-executed their plays more than UAB was able to execute theirs. This was all about the players. And in the case of Memphis, this was about the guards, and in particular, P.J. Haggerty, who just took over the game. Memphis's guards had the will and the skill to win the game, and they did. And if there was any question going into this game, whether Lendeborg, who was the preseason player of the year, or P.J. Haggerty, who seems to be the player of the year, was going to win the honor in the real season, I think it was sealed yesterday for sure. And I got to give Nicholas Jourdain a lot of credit for that. He put the D on Lendeborg, who ended up with only 10.6 rebounds. That's it. A guy who was averaging 17 and about double-digit rebounds, who had taken over games, could not because of Memphis's defense. I think that P.J. Haggerty with 25 points, 4 assists, I think he absolutely won the award yesterday. And unless it's Russ Hodge at North Texas, if they were to win the next two and Memphis faltered and they were tied, I can't see how Penny is not the coach of the year. 88-81 your final. Memphis now with 24 wins and 14 in the conference. That's the most conference wins since they went a perfect 16-0 back in 2016. Those are my thoughts from close in. We'll talk a little bit more about the game, but I want Brian Dacus' thoughts. Did, in your mind, Penny and PJ wrap up the awards for the player and coach of the year?
I think so. I mean, when you look at what both of them have done, as with Penny, the way he's coached, the way that this team has gotten through conference play, I mean, you have the 2 road losses, but I think Penny's probably coach of the year, and then PJ, I mean, I think PJ's been the best player in the conference all year, and you're right, when you had that matchup yesterday against Yaxel, you figured, whoever has the better game will probably have that edge, and PJ clearly had the better game. My favorite part of that game last night was all of the buildup between Yaxel and Dane Danger, and then you really didn't get a ton of stuff during the game. Both guys kind of got into foul trouble. They both had to sit for a while with 4 fouls, but then after the game, Dane Danger's walking through the handshake line, and very clearly something is said to him or he says something to Yaxel, and you can just see in the broadcast kept it on Dane Danger most of the time. But Dane was barking at Yaxel, and Yaxel was not happy about it. But now that's 2 games that Dane Danger has really produced, and Yaxel really hasn't in those matchups. So I'm really hoping, I don't know how the bracket has to line up to see that matchup again, but I would love Danger Yaxel, the 3rd round of that matchup, because that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, well, it would be in the championship game, provided that Memphis ends up the champion. We can talk a little bit about that. Now, you got to help me out here. Dane Danger said, it was already out on Twitter, what he had said. He wouldn't say it on the post-game radio show. I did ask around. I never saw it myself, but I've heard something that, remember Yaxel had said something after really Dane mentioned on the post-game show and after the first win that, he'd never really heard of Yaxel Lendeborg until the scout. Mm-hmm. And then Yaxel took exception to that, said, oh, you just had the game of your career. See you in Birmingham in March. And remember, right. Dane dropped it. He just said, bet, see you then, or something to that nature. So they did not really communicate much. I think Penny tried to put a stop to all the bickering before. Dane couldn't help himself. In that line, I think he said something like, you said that was my career game? Well, I just got a career high in rebounds against you. Yeah. Something like that. Right. And that apparently PO'd Yaxel. Yaxel can get all mad and all huffy. Doesn't matter. He played Memphis twice. He did not produce either time. The Tigers Dane Danger, and I'm again going to mention the matchup offensively. When Lendeborg had the ball, the matchup primarily was Nicholas Jourdain. Jourdain should get a lot of credit for the effectiveness of Danger and for P.J. Haggerty winning Player of the Year if he does.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he and you look now back. Nicholas Jourdain has been huge the last two games. You talk about what he did defensively last night, and then obviously we talked a ton about what he did earlier in the week against Rice, where he was just fantastic. Nicholas Jourdain, two really good games from him.
Yeah, and you know what? This was after Penny had talked with him and basically said, don't look at Danger's numbers. Don't look at the guards' numbers. That's not what you are. Do you. Just be a rebounder, and let's see what happens after that. So we had 7 last night, 5 rebounds. 2 of those were offensive rebounds, and they both resulted in putbacks.
Yep.
That's what he is. He's a defender. He's a really good passer. He had another assist. He's the third number guy on passes, on assists, behind both Haggerty and Hunter. And he's the stat stuffer, with the exception of big-time points. But if you get 7 out of him every game and he plays like that, that's what you want from Nicholas Jourdain. And I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter. Penny goes around the hall into the locker room. When he gets there, he gets an ice water shower.
Love it.
And I haven't seen that much joy from a team. I don't know if I even saw that with KD and DeAndre Williams. They enjoyed playing with each other, but this was a special moment because I know they haven't really officially done it yet. But if you think about it, they've clinched the regular season championship. They've got the tiebreak on North Texas. That's just fortunate. They only played North Texas once, and it was at home. They played them, beat them. And now Memphis would have to lose twice in order to give up that championship. If they win tomorrow night at Texas San Antonio, then they're the champions. If North Texas loses tonight at home against Wichita, they're the champions. If they beat South Florida at home next Friday, they're the champions. So I think it's really there already, and I think that was part of the celebration and joy yesterday. But they say they're not going to take anything for granted. I just can't believe what Texas San Antonio, which is a very mediocre team, which is a team Memphis will probably be favored by double digits. But they beat Rice last night by 28. They scored 53 points, Bryant, in the second half. Rice had to give up. That's all I could think.
Yeah, no, it was. It started to get ugly late. You're right. I think there was in that second half a little bit of give up factor from Rice, but this is a UTSA team where they have a new coaching staff in there this year, and I think a big. He came from Alabama, so I think he has a little bit of that. We want to shoot a lot of threes that Nate Oates has in him. And you look, 43% from 3 last night, knocked down 14 triples. UTSA did, held Rice to only 4 for 22 from 3. So, I think that came down to a lot of 3-point shooting.
All right, so if the Tigers get the 1 seed, which I feel like 98.2%, there's 1.8 of doubt in me.
Yeah.
If the Tigers do get it, if this tournament started today, I don't know how much wiggle room there really is. The Tigers would end up playing South Florida or Temple, the winner of that game, on a week from Friday at noon. So that would be a team that the Tigers split with Temple and will have played South Florida twice because they're going to play the final regular season game with them this coming Friday. Then you get a whole week to rest, and you play that first game, which means you are rested for what would be the semifinals on Saturday. So if the Tigers then beat either Temple or South Florida, they would play Saturday against the winner of the UAB Tulane game. So I thought it would be, honestly, you would play them in the championship, and I don't know how that works, because I would have thought 2-3 and you would be with 4, but that's the way I looked at the website today. You'd play the UAB Tulane winner. That would be at 2. The title game is Sunday at 2:15. Check to see if I got that right, but I'm pretty sure that is the way it is supposed to work out. The Grizzlies back in action tonight against Atlanta. They are 9.5-point favorites. You know, it's hard to believe they got a 2-game losing streak at home, but they do. So with that losing streak, and it's really log jammed at the top of the, or after first place in the West, 2, 3, and 4. You even throw in 5 there a little bit. The Grizzlies have flipped to 4th place with this 2-game losing streak. So they really would do well to make hay while they can. Here's their schedule. Tonight, big favorites against Atlanta. Thunder on Wednesday. They'll be probably underdogs in that game. Then they go to Dallas, and without AD, and of course Luka's gone, you probably would be favorites in that game, even though it's on the road. At New Orleans. And did I see Lester Quinones signed a new 2-way deal with the Pelicans?
Sure did.
I hope he is able to get a bunch of NBA games, because you make a lot more money when you play in the NBA and you're a 2-way guy than you do in the G League. But I'm really happy for Lester. You know, he seems to be always on the periphery, and I'm really not certain which aspect of his game is just slightly missing.
Yeah,
because he can shoot and he can defend. Maybe he's not a good enough penetrator. You know, they kept the Golden State decided between him and who's the Pedrazian? Is that his name?
Podzimski with
they play a
Golden
similar
State.
game. Yeah, Pazinski. Yeah. I'm sorry. They chose Pazinski over him, and I don't see that much difference. So I'm really hoping that Quinones can stick and become an NBA. So after at New Orleans, they go to Phoenix. That's dysfunctional. They embarrassed themselves, according to Kevin Durant, over the weekend. Then they take on the Jazz. Here's your chance. Other than the Thunder game, they're probably the favorites in every one of those games. This is where I think they've really got to make a stand here. I hope they play Ja more. I know he's questionable for tonight's game with shoulder soreness. He didn't play in the last game, neither did Bane. I guess they felt that they could beat San Antonio without those guys. I don't know what they're thinking when they do this load management body rest. I just don't. They gave a game away they should have won. I know it's the NBA. They're all great players. San Antonio is playing without Wembanyama. De'Aaron Fox has a hand that needs surgery. He's still playing. I give him a lot of credit. And that they're also trying to get Cooper Flagg. Yeah. They're trying to lose, and they beat the Grizz because they don't play these guys. That's absolute absurdity to me. And there's another little sideline story that we'll get in the medals in a little bit. The fine on Ja was just ridiculous. It makes you wonder, are they just trying to keep sending messages to John Moran, who appears to be a rehabbed spirit? I don't quite understand that. We'll get to that. In medals, we'll get to Mike DeCourcy here momentarily. Lots happened in college basketball over the weekend because, welcome to March. That is where we are at, and the Hall of Famer from the Sporting News will join us momentarily. He's going to be brought to you by the good folks from Southern Security. So whether you maybe own a small business, maybe you're buying your first home, maybe you're a single mom trying to figure some things out and you need some cash, you can get it and get all the help you want from Southern Security. They are your trusted financial partner, and they've been that way in the Memphis and Mid-South community for 75 years. You know, they've been voted the best credit union in the Mid-South for 6 consecutive years. I'd be shocked if it wasn't for a 7th. They're building this new incredible bank that is going to open up in Collierville, and you know, we always talk about the best rates, the best service, the newest technology. Wait till you see the bank in Collierville. To find out how you can join the team, really, it's the family. You want to be a part of Southern Security, you can talk to a person, 901-452-7900, or you can do it the more fashioned way, new fashioned way, southernsecurity.org. Southern Security, proud supporter of U of M Athletics and 901 Women. Southern Security's your home team credit union and federally insured by NCUA. We head to Pittsburgh. College basketball front and center with the Hall of Famer from the Sporting News, Mike DeCourcy. He comes your way next.
Sports 56 W8. Breaks powder coating for a beautiful finish every time. Super Flings are here to take your laundry to the next level. Gain Super Flings. These things are huge. Gain Super Flings. I'm Gary York. I'm the service director of Lexus in Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place.
We welcome you back. We're going to get a hold of Mike DeCourcy here momentarily. We have a little technical difficulty going on back at the station. No big problem. We apologize for any inconvenience for any of you out there. Oh, by the way, Brian Takis, I got to congratulate you. I meant to do this earlier. Do you know what your record was over the weekend? Do you even keep up with these picks?
No, I was about to look it up, though.
Oh, I'll save you the trouble. You were a winner. You had a 5-1 week. I had a 4-2 week. So both of us now respectable during this college basketball new competition. Both 8-4, all knotted up. And I should have let everybody know we have moved the Family Leisure Studio down southwest here in San Antonio, where the Tigers are getting ready to play tomorrow night against the UTSA Roadrunners. But I want to make sure that you understand what's going on at Family Leisure. It's the first ever preview spring hot tub, swim spa, patio furniture sale. And you know how much I like to brag about what they are doing at Family Leisure. But there's great deals to be had. This is the first time they've ever done it in this fashion. So go in, ask Billy, go ask Lindsay. What's different about this? And then look around, because you will love all that you will see at I-40 and Wooden Road, and plenty of opportunities with this new sale. Mention Sports 56, mention Wolo, mention Bryant. $250 gift card to go with everything else that you will get off. It's a new sale. It's always happened at Family Leisure. We hopefully are going to Pittsburgh. Our friend from the Sporting News, Mike DeCourcy, hopefully he is there. The Tigers almost clinched the American yesterday. It was a pretty good game. It was the kind of intensity that you get with March. I have to believe this is your favorite time of the year. You could see intensity all over the country. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Dave. One of my pet peeves in basketball broadcasting is when we have a good November game between, I don't know, Michigan State, Kentucky, or whatever. And one of the announcers has to hype it by saying, this is like an Elite Eight game. This is like March.
Yeah.
And you know, Dave, You sat there yesterday. There isn't anything in college basketball that's like March except March. And that's the kind of atmosphere you get with games like yesterday, and that will ramp up on the Spinal Tap volume dial past 11 as we get closer to the NCAA tournament selections and then into the Sweet 16, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there is nothing like this. There is no game in November that is like this. And the reason for that is that when you play that game in November and you get a win or a loss, you get up the next day, you go to practice, and you've got 30 games ahead of you.
Oh, we love the games in March because it's much like the tournament itself. There is a penalty to losing. There is great instant reward to winning. And in the case of Memphis and UAB, Memphis, this was going to be the toughest road game of the year. They'd already lost 2. I thought when the year began this would be the one they might lose.
Right.
I didn't see Wichita or Temple happening. And, you were a part of this when you used to write in Memphis. You were a part of the Bartow familial aspect of the Tigers with all these Memphis players and UAB, because they played for UAB, a lot of them, who had been like you take a look at Andre Turner, Steve Mitchell. They were high school teammates that played against each other in college when several of those guys went to go with Bartow when he started UAB. So you remember the sort of the rivalry. Memphis has had the better of it, but folks in Birmingham care about beating Memphis, and it was nearly a sellout. It was electric in there yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. They were great rivalries. I mean, Gene was such a wonderful coach. He could have coached East High into the NCAA tournament if that's what he wanted to do.
I agree.
And he was at UAB when I was covering the Tigers, and they had some wonderful games. I was thinking about it last night watching that game. I DVR'd it during the day and watched it at night, and I was watching the game, and I remembered going with the former Memphis SID Mark Owens to a sports bar in East Memphis. I guess it was out on Germantown Parkway. We went, and we were watching Cincinnati play UAB because the Bearcats were headed to Cincinnati that week, and if UAB took down the Bearcats, then the Tigers had an opportunity to clinch the conference championship at the Shoemaker Center, and ultimately, I believe they did, if I remember the timing right. So that rivalry goes all the way back to then, and obviously your experience with Andre, et cetera, beyond that even, it's a wonderful rivalry, and Andy Kenny's a fantastic basketball coach and doing a great job there.
Oh, he is.
And so to go into that place and win, hey, I was a little disappointed early on. I thought under the circumstances, they were really sloppy in the first part of the first game. They had 8 turnovers and 4 missed layups in about the first 10 minutes. And I thought, man, you guys could be running them off their own floor if you just tighten it up. And ultimately they did, and they played fabulously. I thought that second half, they were fantastic, the Tigers, and I'm doing these seedings every week, and I just hope the Tigers don't get penalized too severely for those 2 conference road losses. I know they're quad 3s, but they're
actually Wichita's a quad 2 now.
Quad 2 now. Well, that doesn't hurt. That shows you the cosmetics of the quad system. A loss can get better after the fact. But I hope they're not penalized too much for their predictive metrics and for having a couple of quad 2s because they still have some really significant, impressive wins from the non-conference that warrant merit. I mean, they beat Clemson at Clemson. You know who couldn't do that? Kentucky, Duke. So I'm going to say that should be noticed.
By the way, since you mentioned Mark Owens, I always enjoyed him. He was such a creative guy and a hardworking guy. He is still doing his thing at Middle Tennessee State, just so you know. He's still working and still Loving it. An interesting guy for sure. All right, you mentioned how good Andy Kennedy is, and there's no doubt about it. He's got more wins at UAB in a 5-year period than any other coach in history, 120. He's the winningest coach in the history of Ole Miss. So that's how good he is. And the Tigers took 2 from him after his team was picked to win the conference. I think Penny got Coach of the Year last night. I think P.J. Haggerty won Player of the Year. We'll see how all that comes out. You know how they used to say, be careful, and this is the case with football. You look to see how at UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, what they did in football right after they left the American to go to the Big 12, it was not a pretty picture. I will tell you it's a different story for Kelvin Sampson in Houston. All he's done now is won 4 regular season championships in a row. He's won 2 in the American to end, even though the Tigers got him in the tournament when they were number 1 in the country. And he's won 2 in a row his first 2 years in the Big 12. He's probably a number 1 seed now, unless something goes crazy. And Mike, you know, they used to say you used to have to have 2 NBA guys, at least 1 for sure and 1 fringe guy, in order to win a national championship and to be in the Final Four. There's not one guy who's that description at Houston.
Yeah, you know, I wonder if Tugler can develop into that if he gives it a year or 2. I mean, because defensively he's ridiculous. He's got the frame. He's got to get better offensively. He's going to be an NBA guy, but if he adds more offense, he might develop into that. But you don't have to have that to make the Final Four. I mean, we've seen that plenty of times. The Final Four, you have to have good matchups. You have to play great. You have to have good college players playing to the peak of their performance. You have to have all of that, but you don't have to have that to get to the Final Four. There have been lots of teams that didn't have either NBA players or NBA first-round picks that got there. But those last 2 games are different. And no one since 1987, when Steve Alford led Indiana to the national championship, has been able to do it without at least 1 first-round pick, and in the majority of cases, the vast majority of cases, multiple. And so that's the question for Houston. It may be the question for Auburn, for goodness sake. They're having the best year of anybody by far. Yeah. And although I would take Janai Broome in the first round, I'm not sure they will. Tahad Pettiford may develop into that eventually, but I'm not sure who else on that roster is.
What about what about the guard with 2 last names whose name escapes me at the moment? He's a heck of a player too.
Yeah, I have not seen any of them on any mock draft other than Pettiford as a long-term prospect and Janai Broome at toward the tail end, 27, 28, 30 of some. And those are the only ones. And so, I don't know whether that affects them. And Auburn also is different in the fact that they don't play they have very good point guards, but they don't have a point guard. I mean, the leading assist guy on Auburn's team right now is Janai Broome, and by a fair amount. I mean, second place, Todd Pettiford, is 2.9. Denver Jones, who is their starting point guard, is only 2.4 assists per game. You don't see that in the history of national champions. There was one, I looked it back, I went all the way to, I think, 90, since 1990. The only time the point guard didn't lead the team in assists was 2017. When Joel Berry was the point guard for Carolina, and one of their wings was 0.1 assists ahead of him. That's how rare that is. So they're going to have to break a lot of standards and beat a lot of good teams, Auburn, in order to win the national championship.
Janai Broome, we saw him in Atlanta in a preseason tournament. Memphis beat Auburn that year, and I thought Janai Broome was a decent player.
Right.
I did not see what I saw in Maui, and in the first game people forget they played Iowa State. Iowa State had a big lead in that game, and Janai Broom was unbelievable in bringing him back. He was unbelievable against Memphis. He's one of the best improvement stories,
Yes.
development stories that I've seen in years, because I think he's a first-rounder for sure.
Janai, he started his career at Morehead State, and as a sophomore played in the championship game against the good Murray State game in the Ohio Valley. And Murray beat them in the end. It might even have been overtime, not sure, but it was close. And that was my first introduction to Janai, and he was a really good Ohio Valley player. Very good. I mean, he was taller than most in the league and really owned the area 6 feet around the bucket, but he wasn't this. And when he went to Auburn, I think they took him in thinking, hey, man, if he could just block shots and rebound, that'll really help us. And then Janai, I'm sure he had plenty of prompting from his coaches, but Janai took it to another level with his work ethic. He's only shooting 29% from three, but he is a threat from there. That's on a reasonable amount of attempts. It's 70 attempts. He's shooting under 30%, but he can make that shot, and you have to guard it. He can guard out there now as a defensive player. He doesn't just have to plant around the rim and keep that clean. He can go out and defend, pick and roll, and all of that. He's really a remarkable story in terms of improvement. It's really been cool to see.
I think it's been great. I think, I've watched Bruce Pearl take guys. Dame Bradshaw, the Memphian, is one of them who's now a broadcaster. What he did with him, I mean, he's pretty brilliant. Let's stay in the state of Alabama. Let's go to Tuscaloosa, actually. Let's go to Knoxville, because that's where Tennessee, kudos to them, they probably get a 1 seed, at least this week, by beating Alabama. But even Nate Oates said, I blew this game. I mean, Alabama blew this game in the last 15, 20 seconds.
Well, you give up the opportunity for Meshack, certainly. That certainly hurt them. They had a chance to win it. I'm not sure blue is necessarily where I would go, because don't forget, I mean, Mark Sears made that unbelievable shot at the end of that shot clock to even put them in that position. So it was, it's one of those situations where there were two great teams playing. One was playing at home. A terrific, sturdy, senior, veteran player makes a shot that is really not really what he is. I mean, he can make a shot, but he's not the guy that you say, that guy's going to hit the game winner for us. It was a remarkable thing for them under those circumstances. I don't have them on the one line. Others do. I still have Alabama there, but there's a chance for Tennessee to get it. Certainly, Florida can get it. I'd say Michigan State is in the hunt, and Alabama remains very much alive. There's a lot of things that will happen this week and next that will dictate who gets those last two number one seeds. Alabama's is in play. Houston's is in play. Certainly, they have to continue to excel in the Big 12 in order to hold theirs.
So are your ones Auburn, Duke, Alabama, and Houston?
Correct. Yeah, I have Tennessee just off the edge. I broke it down. I know that basically Joe Lunardi framed that Tennessee Bama game as a game for a 1 seed. I'm not sure that I'm willing to go there. I looked at the numbers, the records. They're very close. But the game was at Knoxville, so I'm not sure that I can change it based on that. And they like I said, they're as close as they can be. But I still think that Alabama's non-conference was much more difficult than Tennessee's, and as a result of that, they accomplished slightly more. They took on more challenges, so they conquered more challenges. But it'll be decided in these next 2 weeks, and it's really hard to say what will happen. I mean, Florida goes to Alabama on Wednesday, and if Florida gets that one, do they pass the Tide and maybe even pass the Vols, just sort of leapfrog them? There's a lot going on with a lot of the best teams at both ends of the brackets. You've got all this intersection at the bottom of the brackets as well, with Ohio State playing both Nebraska and Indiana this week. All three of the Big Ten's bubble teams will share the court a couple of times.
Going to be fun. And remind me next week, because we're running out of time, and I want to talk about one other thing, to talk about Rick Pitino and what he has done since coming back from the dead at Louisville. And St. John's wins for the first time in the Big East the regular season title since '85. That is pretty darn amazing. But I want to talk to you about the NCAA tournament committee's meeting and the discussion of expansion. To me, it can't get much better. I don't know why you would change anything than you have already, but they talk 72, they talk 76. Now they're saying maybe we'll just hold it for a minute. What's going to happen with the expansion committee and the discussion of this stuff?
Yeah, and I think that I think that one of the things that I'm not super fond of in college athletics is trying to solve problems that haven't happened yet. I understand. I'm not talking about business problems. You want to get ahead of things that are going to cost you money, but things that are the things that will cost you money if you do them. In this case, that's the truth. I mean, a lot of people think this is about money. It is not about money. There is not more money in having more games. The networks that broadcast it and are contracted to do so for 8 more years at a cost of $1.1 billion per year, just for the 67 games we have of March Madness now, are not that interested. They're not. They're not going to pay real money for it. I don't know that they even want to pay more money to even it up. Like, okay, what we're paying now, you give us 6 more games, we'll give you as much money as we're. I don't think they're going to do that because it's not in their interest to do that.
Right.
So this is about the commissioner of the SEC looked at the fact a couple of years ago that they were bringing in 2 more great basketball programs and thinking, oh, we're not going to get enough bids. That's what he thought in the summer 2023. He looked at that and he said, we're not going to get enough bids for all these bids, so we got to expand it so that we can get more. And he's got a lot of power because he's the commissioner of the most powerful college basketball conference, the college sports conference in the country. And he said, we need to get bigger. And what he didn't seem to notice was, one, there's still room for your teams. There'll be plenty. I mean, look at it this year. They will get, at minimum, 12 teams into the field. That's
if they get 12 or 13. Yeah, I mean, if they get 12 or 13, what? He has no argument anymore. That's enough.
And that's
you're going to get under 500 teams from your league in, several of them.
Well, and not just under 500. Not like, okay, they play 18, so not just 8 and 10. I mean, they're going to get teams in there with possibly 6 league wins that they're going to get into the field. And I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with changing the definition of what an NCAA tournament team is, A, in terms of expanding it, B, and I'm not in favor of diluting the end of the regular season or even the regular season on the whole. I mean, right now, North Carolina is considered to be on the bubble because of its metrics. They are on a 5 or 6 game winning streak in which they have beaten the functional equivalent of the middle of the Missouri Valley Conference. I mean, they have beaten one team rated higher than 100th in the net in their winning streak. One. I mean, and that's going to get them in because if we had 72 or 76, they'd get in. Why? I mean, how does that make this basketball season better? It doesn't make the tournament better because what most people will do, the vast majority of people who follow March, will still turn the TV on Thursday. And so it's not like you're going to say, oh, well, now Carolina's playing on Tuesday, and so, we have to watch. I mean, Carolina fans, yeah, there's a lot of them. They'll watch because they'll be happy that their team has a chance. But it won't change the dynamics of the tournament. Right now, the majority of people who follow the tournament turn it on Thursday. But here's what will happen. 1, we'll dilute the end of the regular season. And 2, we'll diminish interest in the tournament at large more so because it'll complicate everybody's bracket. You've got 8 games that have to be accounted for on Tuesday or Wednesday, and your bracket has to be in on Thursday. That, like, people will just say, the heck with it. I can't get all this done. The bracket pools won't work. Right now, they just have to kind of
Right.
write off only those two at-large games, the two at-large teams, and the two 16 seeds. If we expand it, it complicates it much more.
Well, just forget even the complications with the bracket. Why are you going to dilute the best product there is? That would be dumb. You and I are in agreement on that. We will talk next week, and the picture will be even more clear. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
That is our Hall of Famer. That is Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Brian, are we taking a break?
Yes, we are.
All right. We're back with medals momentarily.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Guns, guns, and more guns. Over 700 firearms in stock. Home defense guns, old guns, new guns, used guns, big guns, little guns. Every gun you can think of, classic arms, it is there. All brands like Glock, Sig, Colt, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Browning, Beretta, Benelli, Remington, Winchester, and more. Guaranteed lowest prices in town. Only gun imported in Mid-South. Free gun inspections, gun appraisals, and free bar sighting for the upcoming deer season. Shop online at classicarmsinmemphis.com or visit Classic Arms at 1740 Turntop Parkway behind Parky's Barbecue in Cordova.
Super Friends are here to take your laundry to the next level. Game Super Flings. These things are huge. Game Super Flings. Game Super Flings.
Locally owned and operated for over 40 years, Automatic Gates Construction tailors custom gate solutions for all your residential, commercial, and industrial needs, including repairs, maintenance, and installation. Automatic Gates Construction specializes in designing and installing automatic gates and fencing that seamlessly blends security, functionality, and aesthetic appeal. Elevate the safety and efficiency of your property with a premium gate solution. Automatic Gates Construction at myautomaticgates.com.
Rick's Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Rick's Powder Coating specializes in automotive, ornamental, residential, and industrial coating. With two conveyor lines and the largest patch ovens in the Mid-South, Rick's can accommodate all of your powder coating needs. Locally owned and operated since 2002, Rick's Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop by or call to see how Rick's Powder Coating can bring color to your life. 901-367-2771 or rickspowdercoating.com.
I'm Gary York. I'm the service director of Lexus in Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place where you get your oil changed. We do glass repair, windshield replacement, recalibration of your camera and sonar systems, even wheel repair, tire replacement, all the things you would expect from a luxury automotive dealer. Please check out our website. You can schedule your appointment, check out our specials, hours of operation, or if you'd like to do it in person, please reach out to one of our associates at 901-271-5199.
Final time today, we welcome you back to San Antonio, Texas. Time for a thing we do every Monday. We call it Precious Metals. All right, Brian, you're going to like this. I am going to give my first bronze medal to the Commissioner of Baseball. What?
Wow.
Why, Wolo, would you be giving Rob Manfred a medal?
question.
I'll tell you why. Because he is considering the petition the Pete Rose family has made about allowing him into the Hall of Fame. And if you have ever listened to me over all the years that I have been on radio, I have been steadfast in this. Pete Rose did not belong in the Hall of Fame until he passed away. He was not to be allowed the reward of being in the Hall because he put the integrity of the game on the line when he bet on baseball. Don't give me this stuff that, well, he never bet on his team to lose. If you bet on your team to win every day and then you don't bet on your team to win, it means you think they're going to lose.
That's right.
He definitely put the credibility of the game on the line he did not deserve to be in, but now he does. Now is the time, because now he is past. And what he did on the field, the way that he played the game, the most hits anybody ever had in history, he clearly deserves to be in posthumously. Now is the time for baseball to let him in. I give a bronze medal to Joe Highsmith, who barely made the cut at the Cognizant at PGA National down in Florida. He made the cut on the number that went 64 over the weekend. He wins for the first time on the PGA Tour. He's only 24 years old. It was his 34th start. Man, we have a lot of young, great players. Luke Clanton, by the way, the college player from Florida State. By making the cut, he gets his card. He's going back to Tallahassee. I don't know if he's going to compete with that team at all anymore. I think he's going to join the tour, but I know he was going back to Florida State to celebrate for a little bit. But that's so many young guys. Nick Dunlap did it from college to the pros the year before. So we seeing a lot of competition. I've got 2 silvers. I'll start with St. John's. They won their first Big East regular season title since 1985. Whatever you think about Rick Pitino, what a jerk he might have been to certain people in the past, I know guys he's not been very nice to. He can coach. I don't care. He could coach on his way up to Louisville and Kentucky and the Boston Celtics, and he could coach on his way down again with Iona to St. John's. It's an unbelievable story, and the Johnnies deserve a silver medal. So does Houston. They have won 4 regular season titles in a row, 2 in the American, followed by 2 in the Big 12. North Carolina and Kansas having their worst years. Houston keeps dominating. It didn't matter. They went from the American to the Power. They are still amazing. And then the gold goes to the University of Memphis. The AAC started today. They'd be the number 1 seed. I bet almost anything they will be the number 1 seed. The first regular season championship for Penny. He's already won a tournament title over a number 1 team in Houston a couple of years ago. And I get excited thinking about what we're going to be seeing down in Fort Worth. For the last time it'll be in Fort Worth this past week, but the way things are going now, they'll take on Temple or South Florida at noon Friday, a week from this Friday. The Tigers were golden in Bartow yesterday.
Yes, they were. Dave, I'll start with my bronze medal. I've got to give it to the Los Angeles Lakers. They have been red hot since adding Luka before the trade deadline. 7-2 since Luka made his debut with the Lakers. They're on a 5-game win streak right now, including a win last night. You look up now, they are the number 2 seed in the Western Conference today. So Lakers are playing really good ball right now, especially with the.
Do you think that's where it'll end up?
I don't think so. But at least right now it is, and that's scary. More to come on that later with Russ, but they certainly are number 2 right now. My silver goes to Vanderbilt. I don't know, Dave, if you were able to catch any of this game Saturday night. Vanderbilt in Missouri, a great game, back and forth really all night. Vanderbilt trailed by 4 points with 21 seconds left in regulation. Somehow, some way, they're able to get to knock down 2 massive threes at the end of regulation. With the addition of free throws by Missouri, it was tied at the end of regulation. Vanderbilt went on to win that game in overtime. So a massive win at home, another massive win at home for Vanderbilt.
And we both picked that win, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, so that was big for both of us. Vanderbilt gets my silver medals. Then my gold medals. I have 3 of them to give out very quickly. My first gold goes to the University of Tennessee basketball team. A massive game against Alabama, a really fun game. But then it was Meshack at the end, a logo 3-ball for the win. I don't know if that's the guy you want shooting that shot, but he was the guy, and he drilled it. Really cool to see Tennessee win that game. My second gold goes to BYU, 6 wins in a row for the Cougars, including a win Saturday night against West Virginia, game where A.J. DeBonza, the number 1 player that will be a freshman next year, he was in attendance. He was having a lot of fun. This BYU team playing really well, shooting nearly 40% from 3 over the 6-game win streak, 39.5%. So they're knocking down 3 balls, playing well. My final gold medal goes to the Memphis Tigers. Their win yesterday over UAB. We talked about it a ton, but Dane Danger getting after it early. PJ Haggerty getting hot in the second half. Nicholas Jourdain, the defense he was playing against Yaxel. It was a really fun game, a game where they trailed in the second half, but were able to make it big. And I'll tell you, Dave, the moment I knew the Tigers were going to win that game was when Colby Rogers knocked down, I believe it was his 4th 3 of the game, and that got him up to like 15, 16 points on the afternoon. There was a stat thrown up, I think in the Rice game, where when Colby Rogers has 12 or more points, the Tigers at that point were 8-1, now make it 9-1. The Tigers win games when Colby Rogers scores the ball.
How about this stat? When the Tigers have the lead with 5 minutes to go, they are 21-0.
That's another great
They
stat.
don't
That's
give
incredible.
up the leads. My 2 Russ, I'll start with the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte lost 3 times last week. Brian Dacus, very quickly. Do you know by how many points those 3 losses were?
Oh, I do not know.
Listen to this. 131.
Holy cow.
3 losses by 131. That's bad. That is rusty. And finally, I give a rust to the NBA. I don't know if you watched the Knicks game. When the end of the third quarter came, and players do this because they don't want their stats to be disrupted, they wait till the light goes on to end the quarter, then they try to shoot the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what Ja did. He went 90 feet with the shot after the buzzer sounded, and the ball ended up bouncing into the stands. $25,000 the NBA fined him for that. I think they're picking on Ja. I give him a rush for that. That is not worthy of a $25,000 fine.
No chance at all. But he also got a tech for doing that too during the game.
Yeah, he did.
So getting a lot of everything. My 2 rusts. I also have a rust for you had it for the NBA, but it was Grizzlies related. I have a rust for the Grizzlies. Now back-to-back losses for them, both just coming in crushing fashion, both at the very end of the game. But now the Grizzlies look up. They're sitting in the 4th seed, only 1 game ahead of the Houston Rockets, who we know have the tiebreaker. If it was to come down to that, if they were tied at the end, the Rockets would be ahead, only a half game behind Denver. So now you look, some of these games coming up are big. Grizzlies tonight host the Hawks. Rockets on the road against the Thunder. And the Nuggets, they're off until Wednesday night. My final bronze goes to the Arkansas Razorbacks. Dave, 14-point first half for the Hogs on the road against South Carolina. 8 of those 14 points came from the free throw line at the half. The Razorbacks shooting only 12.5% from the field. That's 3 for 24. Just a really, really poor performance in the first half.
Wow, that is definitely rusty. And those are our medals. They are brought to you by the Spirit Shop. Weekend's over. You better stock up for tomorrow night to maybe champagne or whatever you want to choose to celebrate with, because the Tigers can clinch tomorrow night. Go see Eddie. Eddie Connor is at Poplar in St. Nick, that little log cabin down from Clark Tower. That's 4848 Poplar. That's the place to go. Beautifully located, so wherever you're going, you're going to be near it. and more choice, more education to make a choice when you walk through the door. Ask Eddie. Ask any of the people that are there. They will tell you all about why a particular spirit, maybe it's a valuable bourbon, maybe it's a brand new tequila, maybe it's an up-and-coming vodka, maybe there's something you're not sure about with wine. Is there something that's just gotten on the market that you could buy now that you think will be maybe valuable in a little bit? Eddie Connor will tell you. Anybody in the staff will tell you. They're friendly. Great prices, too. You won't believe how much stock is in there. Go stock up at the Spirit Shop at Poplar and St. Nick. That'll do it for me in San Antonio. I'll be off tomorrow. We'll talk to you in studio on Wednesday. Brian takes over tomorrow. Johnny Radio is next. Have a great day, everyone.